of it goes to America. The production in 1919 was about 23,000 tons. In the map of Africa, the principal producing areas are marked. Their production in 1918 was as follows: cacao beans exported: Gold Coast, British, 66,343 metric tons, 24.5% of the world's production. San Tome, 19,185 metric tons, 7.1% of the world's population. Lagos, British, 10,223 metric tons, 3.8% of the world's production. Fernando Po, 4,220 metric tons, 1.6% of the world's production. Cameroons, 1,250 metric tons, 0.4% of the world's production. Togo, 1,000 metric tons, 0.4% of the world's production. Belgian Congo, 875 metric tons, 0.3% of the world's production. African total, 103,096 tons, 38.1% of the world's production. British Africa, 76,566 tons, 28.3% of the world's production. The Gold Coast, Accra Cacao. The name recalls stories of a romantic and awful past in which gold and the slave trade played their terrible part. Happily, these things are of the past. So is the deadly climate. We are told that it is now no worse than that of the other tropical countries. According to Sir Hugh Clifford, until recently governor of the Gold Coast, the West African climatic bogey is a myth, and the monumental reputation for unhealthiness undeserved. When De Candolle wrote concerning cacao, "I imagine it would succeed on the Guinea coast," as the West African coast is sometimes called, he achieved prophecy, but he little dreamed how wonderful this success would be. The rise and growth of the cacao growing industry in the Gold Coast is one of the most extraordinary developments of the last few decades. In 30 years it has increased its export of cacao from nothing to 40% of the total of the world's production. Production of cacao on the Gold Coast. Year 1891. Quantity 0 tons, 80 pounds. Value in pounds 4. 1896. 34 tons. Value in pounds 2,276. 1901. 980 tons. Value in pounds 42,837. 1906. 8,975 tons. Value in pounds 336,269. 1911. 30,798 tons. Value in pounds 1,613,468. 1916. 72,161 tons. Value in pounds 3,847,720. 1917. 90,964 tons. Value in pounds 3,146,851. 1918. 66,343 tons. Value in pounds 1,796,985. 1919. 177,000 tons. Value in pounds 8 million. The conditions of production in the Gold Coast present a number of features entirely novel. We hear from time to time of concessions being granted in tropical regions to this or that company of enterprising European capitalists, who employ a few Europeans and send them to the area to manage the industry. The inhabitants of the area become the manual wage earners of the company, and too often in the lust for profits, or as an offering to the god of commercial efficiency, the once easy and free life of the native is lost forever, and a form of wage slavery takes its place, with doubtful effects on the life and health of the workers. In defense, it is pointed out that yet another portion of the earth has been made productive, which, without the initiative of European capitalists, must have lain fallow. But in the Gold Coast the indolent native has created a new industry entirely native owned, and in 30 years the Gold Coast has outstripped all the areas of the world in quantity of produce. 40 years ago the natives had never seen a cacao tree. Now at least 50 million trees flourish in the colony. This could not have happened without the strenuous efforts of the Department of Agriculture. The Gold Coast now stands head and shoulders above any other producing area for quantity. The problem of the future lies in the improvement of quality, and difficult though this problem be, we cannot doubt, given a fair chance, that the far-sighted and energetic Agricultural Department will solve it. Indeed, it must in justice be pointed out that already a very marked improvement has been made, and now 50 to 100 times as much good fermented cacao is produced as there was 10 years ago. However, if a high standard is to be maintained, the work of the Department of Agriculture must be supplemented by the willingness of the cacao buyers to pay a higher price for the better qualities. The phenomenal growth of this industry is the more remarkable when we consider the lack of roads and beasts of burden. The usual pack animals, horses and oxen, cannot live on the Gold Coast because of the tsetse fly which spreads amongst them the sleeping sickness. And so the native, used as he is to heavy head loads, naturally adopted this as his first method of transport, and hundreds of the less affluent natives arrive at the collecting centers with great weights of cacao on their heads. Women and children, light-hearted, chattering and cheerful, bear their 60-pound head loads with infinite patience. Heavier loads, approaching sometimes 200 weight, are borne by grave, silent Hausa men, often a distance of over 30 or 40 miles. One day, not so many years ago, some more ingenious natives in the hills at the back of the coast filled an old palm barrel with cacao and rolled it down the ways to Accra. And now to day it is a familiar sight to see a man trundling a huge barrel of cacao, weighing half a ton, down to the coast. The sound of a motor horn is heard, and he wildly turns the barrel aside to avoid a disastrous collision with the new, weird transport animal from Europe. Motor lorries have been used with great effect on the coast for some 7 years. They have the advantage over pack animals that they do not succumb to the bite of the dreaded tsetse fly, but nevertheless not a few derelicts lie, or stand on their heads, in the ditches, the victims of overwork or accident. Having brought the cacao to the coast, there yet remains the lighterage to the ocean liner, which lies anchored some 2 miles from the shore, rising and falling to the great rollers from the broad Atlantic. A long boat is used, manned by some 20 swarthy natives, who glory, vocally, in their passage through the dangerous surf which roars along the sloping beach. The cacao is piled high on wood racks and covered with tarpaulins, and seldom shares the fate of passengers and crew, who are often drenched in the surf before they swing by a crane in the primitive mammy chair, high but not dry, on board the hospitable Elder Dempster line. San Thomé. We now turn from the Gold Coast and the success of native ownership to another part of West Africa, a scene of singular beauty, where the Portuguese planters have triumphed over savage nature. 2 lovely islands, San Thomé and its little sister isle of Principe, lie right on the equator in the Gulf of Guinea, about 200 miles from the African mainland. A warm, lazy sea, the sea of the doldrums, sapphire or turquoise, or in deep shaded pools, a radiant green, joyfully foams itself away against these fairy lands of tossing palm, dense vegetation, rushing cascades, and purple precipitous peaks. A soil of volcanic origin is covered with rich humus of decaying vegetation, and this, with a soft